Good morning. Welcome to another Just Truth with Apostle Dwayne. My name is Apostle Dwayne Hughes. I'm sorry, today is Business with Apostle Dwayne. It's Tuesday, August, I believe it's the 9th. In any case, today I'm going to be going over You Only Get What You Negotiate, Part 3. So we started this 2 weeks ago, and we've been talking about, or I've been talking about with you, about the power of negotiation and and how that affects your life. That really all of life is business, all of it. It's all business, and that's one of the things God wants you to know about. I mean, He really wants us to get focused on doing and being in business and being entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurs are the backbone of any society, and it all comes down to the money. He said, I would that you be the head and not the tail. But if you're all employees, or if we're all employees, how are we going to ever be the head? And so becoming entrepreneurs is essential to us moving into a better circumstance in our own lives and in the lives of our community. And so on this show, Business with Apostle Dwayne, that's what I talk to you about is business. But what you have to understand is that the Bible is the world's best business book. All the most sound principles of doing business and commerce and trading between people, it's all scriptural, because that's the way it's all designed. Everything in the world is it's offers. It's an offer to get or trade or something like that. You trade your labor. There's nothing that happens in the earth between people that's not a trade or something. There's going to be interactions between people, but it's all entrepreneurial. The food you eat, the place you live, everything. And so one of the things that has been taken from us in our history, we were entrepreneurs, great entrepreneurs. Solomon was us, and so we have to regain these parts of ourselves, or else we're never going to be whole. And there's just too many things facing us and coming down the pike for us to not be cognizant of these things. Now, for that reason, also, I want to mention the new book that that God just gave me to write. It's called God Wants You in Business for the Kingdom. Now, what you have to understand about God is that He's a king. He's not an elected official. And the earth that you live in, you're in a war of kingdoms, and you as an individual have to be responsible to engage in the commerce of life. It's all business. It's all business. And so ever since the fall, it's all been business. Now, when you get to heaven, there is no economy there. Everybody eats. There's nobody who doesn't have anything. But here, what you eat is going to be by the sweat of your brow. And then that introduces competition and all kinds of things like that. And so what God is wanting to restore to us is the understanding of doing business and commerce. But then also, He wants you to know that He wants to partner with you. If you're His own, you're His people, and especially us being of the stock of Abraham, I mean, we should be prospering, and we should be engaging in business. We have to do that. Okay, more than protesting, more than all this other stuff. If you don't have any economic power, you have no political power, you have no other power. Okay, and so we have to begin to overflow into our lives and in the lives of our family and things like that. And so there's so many principles that I have for you in this book. I've already gotten some of the reviews back, and they're very good. I mean, it ministers to me. And I know this stuff, and he's given me levels of revelation that I didn't know as he gave me this book. And so I just want to let you know that right now you can get the book for free. You can get the ebook for free by going to my website, www.apostledwayne.com. You can get the download of the ebook. And I promise you, there's stuff in there that you do not know. And there's things in there that God wants you to know. And it's vitally important for you and in your life. And God wants to help you get power to move and grow. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into the message today. Well, no, I want to take a sidebar. Yesterday, I came across something that really hurt my heart. I was looking at a video by Roland Martin. He was interviewing a mother whose son, I guess he had just graduated high school, was found murdered in the attic of a white supremacist. This is in somewhere in St. Louis, Missouri. And the man got off. They said he went to a party, and they said the kid killed himself. And they said that he was found in the attic, and you could tell the attic had been cleaned, and and this was the second person to die on this man's property, supposedly by suicide. Okay, and they let him off, and the police let him off, and these people. One of the things that God has shown me about these people, like, first of all, when my ministry first began, the first videos I uploaded was ones where he was showing me this type of stuff was going to be on the rise, and it's coming, and it's being fulfilled 100%. This stuff is happening. And it really disturbed me. I was like, God, why are you allowing these people to make it? Why are they surviving and things? And I didn't get the revelation till this morning. That's my job. That's your job. They ain't going nowhere. Last week I was doing, or week before last, I talked about the book of Maccabees, and I'm going to go back to Maccabees on my Just Truth podcast show later on in the week. And we're going to get back into Maccabees, and you're going to see that, your survival is up to you, and we have to be aware and cognizant of this stuff. And that's why I do these shows, because God wants me to help to equip the people so that you can take care of yourself, because ain't nobody else coming. It's us. Okay. So now let me go ahead and get back into this message. So today we're going back into the subject of you only get what you negotiate. And I started 2 weeks ago with this. I showed you Abraham negotiating to buy a plot of land, a burial plot for his wife Sarah after she died. But he didn't just buy the plot, a cave to bury her in. He also bought the field and the land around it. It was a nice piece of land. Nothing that Abraham bought. This man was a king in the earth. Whole nations have come from this man. Okay. And he wasn't going to buy just any piece of land. He bought a very nice piece of land to bury Sarah. And I think he was buried there as well. I can't remember. But the bottom line is, there was a negotiation process that he went through to get the land. And I covered a lot with that. I'm not going to redo that to here today. Go back and see that message. It's the first one I did on You Only Get What You Negotiate. Then last week I began this part here talking about Jacob and Laban. And so where I left off was, so Laban had taken advantage of Jacob on a business deal to marry one of his daughters, and I covered that. And so we're taking up from here now. We're going to start off where I left off from last week, talking about once Jacob began to get wise to what it was like, dealing with his uncle Laban, then he started trying to figure out how to turn the table. See? And so now what you have to understand is, if you're a servant of the Most High, if you're a servant of God, okay, he's not going to per se drop things in your lap. But what's in your lap, or what's supposed to be in your lap, is actually in the hands of someone else. And that's that whole trading process. Everything under the earth, the whole earth is put under names. Everybody has when Adam named everything, that's part of taking territories. When you put a name on something, you named it. Well, that you had the authority to name it. You see, or you took the authority to name it. And so everything on the earth, that's why you got deeds and tracts and stuff like that. There's a name on a place. And so for you to own it, you have to put your name on it. Okay. And so the process of doing, that's just one of the things that we do in taking authority. And so so what happened is, Jacob and Laban, Jacob made a deal with him, and so Laban kept changing the deal. And I don't know, I talked myself off onto a tangent just then, but let me just go back here. All right, so we're going to pick up from where we left off last week. And right here, so this is about where I left off. Genesis chapter 30, verse 25. And it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go unto mine own place to my own country. And so basically, he had fulfilled all of his time with Laban. He'd worked for 14 years for the two wives, and basically Laban had given him just his sustenance. He was able to eat, and have provision, but for his wives and his families and whatnot. But Laban wasn't going to give him anything. Laban was basically a slaveholder. You got a lot of people who, they want your check along with theirs. And that's what slavery was. Slavery was economic. And there was other things that came with it, but it was a system of collusion. A bunch of people with guns colluded one with another to make sure that we're going to force these people into this servitude position, and then we're going to align together to make sure that they stay there. And that's what it was. It was an alliance. It was alliances of people to take a people, steal them, strip them of their rights, use them for their labor, use them for their bodies, for sex, and all kinds of other things, and then to agree to one another that we're going to use our power to make sure that they stay in that position, while we'll make sure they make us money. And so that's what the whole system of slavery was. It was like if your boss said one day, listen, everybody, you're all going to keep your job, or you have to keep your job, but I'm going to keep your paycheck. That's what it was. That's why the plantation owners were so wealthy. And so people with that mentality, they're the dregs of the earth. They really are. All they think about is themselves and their future generations. They don't care about anybody else. And so if you give them the opportunity, you don't know what they're capable of. And so once you start to learn that you're dealing with someone who has absolutely no moral compass that they will be bound to as far as good, that's somebody you recognize has the potential to do anything. And you have to, once you see that someone is like that, you have to be very shrewd in how you deal with them. So right here, Jacob's fulfilled his time. And now he's got these two daughters of Laban's and all these grandkids from Laban, or for Laban. And Laban, I guess, thought that he's just going to forever keep this man. And so, God came to him and said, go back to your father's country. And so he goes to Laban and says, hey, send me away with my wife and kids. Right here. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. Now Jacob had a conversation with his wives before that. You see, he had a conversation before the conversation. It's always wise, especially when you have other parties involved, or you want to make sure that before you go into another meeting, or the meeting with the outside people, that you had the inside meeting. So he had everybody on the same page. That, listen, you ladies are my wives, my kids, but look, us working for him ain't done nothing for us. He got them on the same page with him. So he had a business meeting. He had a pre-negotiation, right? And then, so he goes to Laban and he says, give me my wives and my children, for which I have, the service I've done thee, right? Now, this caught Laban by surprise. It had to. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. Now, if that was the case, if he really felt like that, he would have blessed David back. Now, sometimes you have people, sometimes we're expecting someone to give us something, or we're hoping that they're going to give us something. And then we feel let down when they don't do it. But By you giving them the opportunity to do it on their own, what you've done is you've taken a position of power. You've submitted them to a test, right? What you did is it's like when the teacher gives you a test, they don't tell you, they don't speak to you, they just say, hey, fill these answers in, right? And so what you do, what you have to do, we have to learn to do is we have to test people. You have to. It's just, it's like you don't want to be like that, but you give people the opportunity to show you who they are. And then when they do, just believe them. When they show you, believe them. And so what happened here is now all of a sudden Laban's like, oh, if I found favor in your eyes. Well, see, now a lot of times people with power, they say things that they don't really mean. If I have found favor in your eyes, he didn't care about Jacob caring about whether or not he had favor with him or whether or not Jacob cared about him. If he did, he wouldn't have taken advantage of him. If someone's taking advantage of you, they don't care. They don't care that they're doing that. If they did it, that tells you how they feel. When people take advantage of you, they take from you your goodwill, your good whatever. You go into it with a good open heart and you're being honest and forthright and whatnot. And then you start to see that they didn't really go into it from that same aspect. And then you start to see things in the relationship where you can tell they didn't actually treat you as if they cared. For instance, let me give you an example. If something causes you pain, like let's say you get sick and you say to your boss, hey man, I don't know what I got. I just came down with something. If your boss says, well, get back to work, you know that person doesn't care about you. Or whoever you tell, it could be a friend, someone in your relationship, whoever. If you tell them something about you that causes you pain, and they don't even go there to empathize with you, they don't even put themselves in your place, say, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, if that thing doesn't even happen, you automatically know that person has no care for you, unless you had an interaction or something where they're mad at you, and then that would be understandable. But if there's no actual relation to you that, oh wait a minute, I care, then and treating you as such, then you already know that this person does not care. Okay, and so that's just one of the little tests. I mean, it's not just that. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but when you give people the opportunity to show you who they are, believe them and then act accordingly. See, I always say, I learned this because God kept me in sales for a long time. He kept me in sales for over 2 decades. And one of the things I learned, one of the guys that I used to work with, because a lot of times on this show, I talk to you about being shrewd. One of the men I worked for was very shrewd, and he had this saying. He said, you can't change human nature. All you can do is learn it and then act accordingly. And he was right. He was right. You can't change human nature. All you can do is learn how human nature works and then learn to act accordingly. Okay. And I'll tell you this, one of the reasons God kept me in sales was for so long was because there's two professions that are really hated in the earth. There's two. There's preachers and car salesmen. He made me both. Okay. Now, other salespeople are hated too, but really car salesmen are really hated. And I had to learn to be in that car business because he would not let me leave the car business. He kept pushing me back into the car business. I had to learn how to do that business where I could still be accountable to him and be able to look myself in the mirror and still make money and pay my bills. So I had to learn to do sales differently than what the average person who is in the sales profession does, because a lot of the people who are in sales is really all about them. They don't care about you. But I had to learn techniques and ways of helping people because everybody's suspicious of salespeople. So I had to figure out how to break down their suspicions by being ultra trustworthy. And then I had to establish some rules for the way I would act and interact with people that let them know, look, this guy don't really care whether I buy or not. He's going to treat me this way. He's going to tell me honestly and what and when I gave people that, when I gave myself that, I gave myself the integrity to know that I didn't have to worry about um whether or not someone bought or not. I was gonna be fine. God's gonna take care of me. And so once I developed that mentality to where I resist the urge of fear, because what fear will always push you away from the sale. I know I'm kind of going on some tangents, but the Lord's giving it to me, so I'm gonna give it to you. Fear will always push you away from the sale. Like for instance, if you're afraid, you're not going to tell somebody that outfit doesn't look good or don't get that or whatever. You're gonna tell them what they want to hear, and people pick up on that very easily. People can pick up on someone who's a yes man, someone who doesn't want yes men. Now some people want yes men, they only want people who are going to say what they say, right? But most people want to be given the truth. And if people pick up that you're plastic, that you're not real, that you laugh at ugly jokes, or I'm sorry, that you laugh at jokes that aren't funny, and you kiss ugly babies and stuff like that. Now you're a politician, okay? And people pick up on that. There's a innate distrust for that. But your friends, the people that you're close to, there's something that that they do in your life that gives you them the credibility to be your friend. You know what it is? They don't care. You say something stupid, they make fun of it. You do something stupid, they tell you about it. They're going to give you the honest truth, and you can't have a friend that you don't respect. And so I had to learn how to initially meet people and automatically become a trusted friend, because that's who I am. Regardless whether you bought with me or not, these are the things about me. And so he put me in that profession to learn those things, so that as I grew in my ministry, that I'd be solidified in the fact that this is the way you build trust and community and relationship with people. You give them the truth. That's the core of this ministry. So anyway, let me get back onto the subject of this negotiation. So here Laban is saying, oh, if I found favor in your eyes. Well, Jacob had 14 years for Laban to demonstrate that he wanted Jacob to be happy with him. He could have given Jacob a portion of what he was making for him, or something. He could have shown Jacob, I appreciate you. When people don't do that on their own voluntarily, because you didn't say something, not because you said anything, if they don't do it on their own, it's not in them. Understand that. You have to put the test in place. You have to be shrewd. Okay, always be tested. I'm talking about friends, family, relationships, whoever. You measure, because if you don't, what's going to happen is you'll a lot of times be in these relationships with people, especially if you got a good heart, well, people who are taking advantage of you. And then when you need them, they won't be there. And whose fault will that be? If they failed all those tests and you stayed there, that's your fault. And I'm talking about any relationship, every relationship. Okay, so now let me continue. Oh, if I had favor in your eyes, stay, the Lord's blessed me because of you. He's flattering. But Jacob, by this point, knows he's going to do that. You see, because he pulled a power move on him. Let me go. I'm going to leave now. Sometimes if you help somebody to get something that they can't manage on their own, they know that they can't do it without you. And they know that if you leave, it's going to fall apart. I've had dealerships that I helped turn around that when I left, that's what happened. But they didn't want to pay me. They didn't appreciate me. That's a commission job. If you don't appreciate me, why am I here? How do you show me your appreciation? You pay me. You know how they show you? You know how you show the electricity company you appreciate having electricity? You pay the bill. Same thing with your phone company, your car company, whoever. You pay the bill, okay? And that says you keep that service. What happens if you don't pay the bill? You lose, okay? So, and he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, thou knowest that how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. So this is so first of all, so Laban said, if I found God's blessed me for your sake. Appoint me, tell me what you want so you can, so you'll stay. And Jacob said, okay, so thou knowest how I've served thee and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little, that which little you had before I came, and it's now increased into a multitude, and the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. All right, so now when shall I provide for my own house also? Okay, so now here, Jacob, I talked about this last week, that at this point, he knows who he is and he knows what he's done. It's not, sometimes you go into a situation telling somebody, listen, I can do this, I can do that. This wasn't that situation. He's like, look, I already did this. Okay. And and you now have a multitude. You only had a little bit when I got here. Now you got a multitude. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou will do anything for me, I will again feed. If thou will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. Okay, so Jacob told him, don't give me nothing. Don't give me nothing. Let's do a new deal. Don't give me something. Someone gives you something, they can take it away. That's just like when Abraham bought that tomb for his wife. If they gave him the tomb, said he could just bury her there, that's not him owning it. He wanted the ownership. Now, today I'm also I'm not going to do the Your Money show this week. I'm going to do a double show on this one, and part of the reason is nobody's been looking at or watching the Your Money, and some of these shows that I'm doing, I'm not going to continue to do if people aren't looking at them. All right. So anyway, but at the same time, I'm not going to be replacing and adding the time either. So like this show is still going to be a 30-minute show, but just today I'm going to do an hour on it. All right. And so he said, and Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. So this is my new deal. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle and all the brown cattle among the sheep. And the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. Now, let me tell you something. Jacob probably knew something, or I'm sure he knew something that Laban didn't. And we're going to look and see what he did. Now, years ago, I managed this dealership, a Mazda dealership. It was Jim Ellis Mazda in Atlanta. And when I took over as the new car sales manager, I went straight from being the salesman right by the door when you come in to the new car manager in one promotion. And that was like getting 5 promotions at one time, because usually you go from being the salesman to finance, or no, actually salesman to internet, then finance manager, then internet manager, then used car manager, and then the new car desk. So that was like 5 promotions in one day. Now, keep in mind that I didn't just get into the car business at that time. I had been in it for like 17 years at that point. And one of the things that I had learned, the guy had been showing me, is he had moved me around to so many different dealerships. I couldn't understand why everyone else would stay in dealerships and they'd get paid, but they were always messing with my money or changing the pay plan or something. There was something they would do to tell me, okay, they don't want me here. And so I would go somewhere else. And so what happened is as I began to move around to different stores, I began to notice that there was something good that they did in each place. And then there was a bunch of bad stuff that they did too. And so what I began to do is I began to accumulate the things that I saw that were good in each place in my mind, from the standpoint that one day when I'm running my own store, now I didn't say if, I said when. One day when I'm running my own store, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use this. And I was building my repertoire of things to do. And so then I began to experiment with these things as I was working at these other stores. Now, or working for other people. And so there's a principle that I talk about. It's doing it on someone else's dime. Okay. When you're working for your employer, they're actually paying you to become a competitor. They're providing the location, the leads, they're providing the phone, they're providing the advertising, they're providing everything to prepare you to be good at that thing so that you can compete one day against them. Because that's your assignment. If you find that you've spent a certain number of years there and you're no better equipped to run the business than you were when you got there, that's your fault. You see, you want to make sure that the time that you don't lose the time while you're working for someone. You want to rise through the ranks. You want to get all the way up the management ranks to you become an executive. But even if you don't get there, you still want to grow in your position so you could be a competitor in that business. You can be a competitor to that business. What happens if they go out of business? What happens if someone buys the business and then they fire everybody? That kind of stuff happens all the time. And so you want to make sure that no matter what happens to the plane, you got your own parachute. And that is when you're going there and you're putting in that time and you're putting in that effort, what you're doing is you're preparing yourself to be a competitor, because you want to be a competitor. You don't want to just be a player. You want to be a competitor. You want to be the one on the team that people come and look for, or they're watching out for. If a team is not scouting you, let's say you're an athlete. If a team is not scouting you, then you're not doing nothing. But if you're that one that no matter what they try to do, no matter what plays they try to run against you, no matter what type of defense they try and put on you or whatever, you're going to still get your points and you're still going to help other people score. That means you're dangerous. And so this is the kind of thing that we're supposed to also learn it when you're working. When you're working, you want to grow to become a competitor. It's not your job to be their employee till you die, unless that's what's in your head. And if that's what's in your head, that's exactly what you're going to be, their employee till you die. But what if something happens where that company goes out of business? There's all kinds of things that happen in the world, and you have to be prepared. And the way you prepare for tomorrow is today. Today, you do more today. You plan more today. You execute today. Today is the day that you put in a little extra. While everyone else is just going in and punching the clock, you want to show up early. You want to eliminate your manager's job. You know how you get promoted? You be the one employee that the manager doesn't have to manage. Let me say it a different way. When I was, one of the things that I had in my mind is, I've always seen myself as a business person, a business owner. And if I'm a business owner, that means I'm an executive. I don't care how tiny the business is. You're an executive if you're a business owner. You're the executive if it's just you. Okay. And so an executive operates differently than an employee. An executive, you don't have to tell them to show up on time. You don't have to tell an executive to do what needs to be done to make sure the customer is happy. You don't have to tell an executive to make sure that they're operating in a way that makes them look good. You don't have to tell an executive to be cognizant of the way that they talk and what they talk about and how they handle themselves, because it'll reflect on their company and potentially cause them to go out of business. You don't have to tell that kind of stuff to an executive. You have to tell that to a grown child that's working for you. You have to tell that to an adult child. That's the kind of stuff you say to someone who doesn't understand that they are an executive, even if they're just an employee. You see, this is a mentality that you have to have, because you're not going to become an executive if you're not thinking like an executive when you're not an executive. A lot of the preparation and things that happen in your life is what leads you to a place and forces you. You have to force your way into a place. You have to force your way into places. And the way that you do that is not by forcing your way, it's by the way you do your work. I promise you. The scripture says that a gift makes room for the gifter and will bring them before wise men. It says that another one says that your gift will bring you before kings. But what is the gift? You're the gift. You're the gift. In one of the first episodes I did of Your Money, I talked about the fact that everything is money. Hey, you're money. You are money. When you go look in the mirror, you're looking at money. Your style, the way you act, what you do, your money, your ideas, your intellect. Ideas is one of the most important things. That's why on one of the shows I talked to you about not giving away your ideas. Your ideas is money. Everything that you're wearing is someone's idea. The place that you live was someone's idea. The car you drive was someone's idea. If you're in a jail cell, that place was someone's idea. That uniform you're wearing, someone's idea. Everything in the earth, when you drive down the street, that street was someone's idea. That city you live in was someone's idea. The electricity in your house right now, someone's idea. Everything your whole life, you're surrounded by people's ideas. So the question is, when are your ideas going to get into the marketplace? When are you going to reach into the unseen and pull it into the seen? That's your assignment by God. And if you don't do that, you are throwing away one of your greatest talents, and it's your ability, your unique stamp on this world. And a lot of people now are picking this up. That's why you have so many people who are influencers and things like that. And that's a great thing. We are in a time that's completely amazing. We are in a time that we have never seen before, and you want to take advantage of these things. Okay. And so, back to the point I was saying about on the job. And so what I would do is, as I went around to these different places, I found different things, and then I began to manage a dealership in my head. Okay. I began to like, for instance, there were other salespeople I saw that were struggling, and what they were struggling with was the things I used to struggle with before I got trained. Training, very important. Some of the best people that at anything, they're constantly reading, constantly studying, constantly giving themselves, adding to themselves. Because here's what happens when you read a book. Now, I talked about this before on one of my other episodes. I'm not going to go into all this in depth, but you get to distill someone's years of struggle and failure and victories into a couple days when you read someone's book. You basically eliminate trial and error and things especially things that you're not familiar with. But then it also, even if it's things that you are familiar with, you get a completely different perspective. That's worth money, because once you got it in your head, then you can bring it out. Remember, it's all about reaching into the unseen and making it manifest, pulling it into the scene. That's why I have the show Manifesting the Mind of Christ that I do on Thursdays. It's all about you growing into the miraculous things of God by having the mind of Christ. And I can promise you that everything with God is entrepreneurial. Okay, so anyway, so I was managing these dealerships in my head. I started at the base level. I was helping salespeople who weren't doing well. I helped them survive in the business because I was able to relate things like I'm talking to you about right now. And then they were able to internalize the mentality, and then I would give them the processes. And then once they did it, it worked. It's just like when you go to the wall and you flip the light switch, you might be flipping the switch, but it's working because of the reasons that it was designed. It was designed to work. All you're doing is flipping the switch. The switch did the flipping. The switch connected the electricity to, from one pole to the other and going all the way back to the power plant, and then the lights came on. Well, there's a system put in place, and the more systems the more systems you can operate, just like flipping a switch. You see? And so I would give them things, and then they began to prosper and do well. I did that with, I was doing that as a salesman. I was turning whole dealerships around as a salesman. Okay. And so by the time I finally got that promotion, I was ready. You see, I had already practiced and already had some stuff that I knew that they didn't. And I had the combination of all the places I'd been and all the things that I picked up and all the things I learned to do and not to do, on top of my own intellect, on top of my own inventiveness, on top of my own entrepreneurial struggles and trials and all that stuff. So I brought a flavor there that they didn't have. And we went straight from being the worst dealership in the state to the fastest growing Mazda store in the country. And I got proof, of that. I can show you my numbers, but the reason I'm telling you this stuff is it's not about me. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you the understanding so that you know how to operate. Okay. And everything is a negotiation. Getting back to the subject of this with Jacob. Okay. So here I've gone off on all these tangents. I'm getting ready to show you that everything I just told you that I just went through, all these different little tangents, every one of these is apropos to this story. Want me to show you? Okay. So first thing, he realized that he was being taken advantage of, but he couldn't uncommit. He had already spent 7 years happily serving this man for one daughter. Then he realized, man, he just tricked me out of 7 whole extra years of my life. You think he wasn't a little upset about that? You think he wasn't a little upset about the fact that and the way he gave him the second daughter, man? I mean, just the whole setup. He didn't even give him the opportunity to say, hey, man, well, look, why don't you do this? Why don't you take both of my daughters, but you serve me for 14 years? And Jacob would probably say, but no, I don't want this other one. See, that's why he didn't even honor him to talk to him in the first place, straight up, because he knew that Jacob was probably going to say no to the deal, because that's the thing. You can always say no to a deal. The offer that's put on the table is just the initial offer. You can renegotiate. He might have said, look, I'll serve you for 3 years for her. But no, what Laban did was Laban stole that 7 years from Jacob by not honoring him. You see, and so the first thing I told you is when you give people a test here, Jacob served the man honestly, and when the man stole that 7th year from him, those 7 years by supplanting his wife, the one he paid for with his labor, with the other wife, he automatically told Jacob, I don't appreciate you. That was the first thing. And then the daughter who played along with it, she laid down there. She probably had a veil on her head or whatever. She pretended to be her sister. She knew that she wasn't supposed to be there. So here he was taken advantage of by 2 people. And then the other one that he married, the one he'd been working all that time for, she didn't even warn him. You see? So here he is in hostile territory. A man with 2 daughters, all of a sudden now everything's changed. You see? All right. And so by the way, that's not just one change when he said, oh, serve me for an additional 7 years for this other daughter. That's multiple changes, because first of all, he changed the deal by switching the wives. And then he changed the deal by making him marry this other wife or making him work 7 more years for the wife that he already worked for. Besides the fact that he stole the 7 years that's 3 transactions right there. You see? So Laban has already demonstrated in 3 ways that he didn't appreciate Jacob. I told you that the first, you got to look to see how people treat you when you don't say nothing, when they don't know that you're looking. Okay. All right. And so then, so he comes in and he makes this new deal. Now, Jacob, the first time he made the deal with Laban, he didn't put those contract clauses in there. If something happens to Rachel, then the deal's off. You got to give me 2 more daughters or something. He didn't put a performance clause in there. He just went, oh yeah, I'll marry, I'll work 7 years for her. He didn't put a performance clause in there for Laban. He just put one in there for himself. He obligated himself without obligating Laban to make sure that Laban came through on his end of the deal. You see? All right. So now he says a new deal. And so he says, okay, so remove from your flocks all the speckled and spotted and yada yada. And take for you all the ones that are clean. Those are yours. And I can guarantee you that he probably took the smallest portion of Laban's flock. All right. Because he was being shrewd. Now, he didn't just take, sometimes we negotiate against ourselves. You never want to negotiate against yourself. But at the same time, if you have something that your own little bit of technology that that nobody else knows, you're not obligated to tell anybody why or how you make something run the way you do. That's yours. That's your intellectual property. That's your patent waiting to happen. Okay. So let's see here. And so he said, don't give me nothing, because you're not going to say that you gave me anything. Right. And said, take up among your all the speckled and spotted, right? And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. So here Laban's thinking, oh, he gave me the better end of the deal. Here he's already just starting out with a little bit, and now he's got to manage all my multitude of stuff, and he's got his own little flock over here that's probably ain't gonna ever be nothing. And you know what is funny? You can demonstrate to somebody your greatness; they can see it. But in the exact same time, and this is someone who can't do what you do, at the exact same time, they'll sit there and try and say something. Oh, it ain't nobody. That is not something to be confused by. That is a fool. They just told you who they were. Honor them as that. Give them that. Reward them with that. That they lose, kind of like if you don't pay the electricity bill, they lose something. Anything that you do not maintain, you lose. All right. So now watch this here. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the he goats that were ring straight and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, and everyone that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. So now, nepotism. Let me tell you, you got a lot of people who want to pass your work on to their kids. And the sad part about it is you got a lot of kids who don't even appreciate a family business or something like that. If they did, they would run it into the ground, if they even tried to get into it. So you got a lot of people who God never favored the birth order, and neither Jacob yet God chose the elder. I don't know about that one. Yeah. Okay. God never favored the birth order, and neither did Jacob, yet God chose the elder Leah, in this case, to bear Judah. Okay, that may be true. All right, so now let me get back to the banners here. All right, and so let's see here. And so he gave his flocks, everything into the hand of his son, into the hands of his sons. And so now what he did was, that was the first dumb move he made, that Laban made. Because when he took Jacob up on that offer, and then he moved all of his flocks out of the hands of the person who grew it into the ones who didn't. Let me tell you something. People that don't know how to build something don't know how to maintain it. They don't. The thing that heirs are a lot of times afraid of is losing a fortune because they didn't build it. And a lot of times the person who had something, or had a fortune or whatever, they just brought their kids in at the top. The smart people make their kids come in and start at the bottom. You learn that job, and I don't want nobody to give them nothing. You take from them. You make sure that you make it hard on them. And so when that person learns to succeed on their own, they got something. But when you give your kids too much, they can't do it. They've been used to it being given to them. So he gave all his stuff into the hands of his sons, took it out of Jacob's hands, the one who grew it. All right. And he set 3 days journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Okay. So he removed all the ones that were Laban's, and then Jacob fed the rest of them. Okay. And Jacob took with him rods of green and poplar and of hazel and chestnut trees and white and piled white strakes in them and made and peeled white strakes in them and made the white appear which was in the rods. Okay. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods and brought forth cattle, ring straight, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs and set the faces of the flocks towards the ring straight, and all the brown in the flock of Laban, which he put his own flocks by themselves. Okay. And put them not unto Laban's cattle. All right. So now, this technique that he had for producing speckled and spotted cattle, he had basically probably gained through observation that when this happens, when they mate in front of something that's speckled or spotted or the stripes on it, all of a sudden they come out speckled and spotted. Had he told that to Laban, Laban wouldn't have done that deal. He held that to his chest. And then what happened later, you'll see, is that God said that when he saw Jacob was operating like that, he multiplied it even more. Okay. Excuse me. So once you learn something, if you're right with God, he'll take the thing that you're doing and he'll multiply it. He'll add to it. Okay. If you're right with him. All right. And then right here. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's and the stronger were Jacob's. So here, Jacob became to know the Laban as a crook and didn't have any honor. And now Jacob has this technology in producing speckled and spotted cattle and flocks. Why would he give that information to Laban? And then he went and used that own thing against him. And what Laban, they didn't agree. Laban, there was no part in the agreement where Jacob agreed to continue to multiply Laban's flock. He said he will feed them. He said he will continue to feed them. That was you see. And so what I mentioned last week when I was talking about, I was going to talk about this week, was how Jacob turned the tables on Laban. Okay. And so, so the feeble were Laban's and the stronger were Jacob's. All right. And the man increased exceedingly and had much cattle and maidservants and men servants and camels and asses. Okay. So now here, what Jacob did was he took his ownership of himself. He took the ownership of what was in his head, his technology, his anointing. He took hold of it and he used it to bless himself, because he was in a setting where he was dealing with someone who was trying to steal from him. That's what I was talking about when I said at the outset or early on in the message, when I was saying that you're supposed to grow to become a competitor. If you grow up in a company to where you can compete with that company, what they'll want to do, if they're smart, is pay you to stay. Now they got this competitor on their team. But if they don't honor you and offer you to stay, you can go off and make your own. That's your responsibility to do that. That your job isn't going to tell you can do that. They're not going to want you to grow to become a competitor unless they're smart. You got a lot of companies out there that invest a lot into their employees. The smartest companies in the world do that. There's companies that are over 200-300 years old. there. I saw a thing on them. I can't remember. It was an article I read years ago in Inc. magazine talking about these companies that were over 200-300 years old. And you got to understand, industries changed since they first started doing whatever they were doing. Industries changed. They changed industries. They might have been in one thing and moved to something else or whatever. But all the employees, most of the employees in these companies are multi-generations of families that stayed with that business, because those companies took care of those employees as if they were family. And those companies they operate on global scales. Just little small, mid-sized companies operate on a global scale because they retain the technology. The family members who are learning and figuring out new things to do in whatever industry they're in, they retain that technology. They just pass it on to the next generation. And so you got multiple generations of technology being passed down in the family inside someone's business, because these people understand what it's like the value of making sure to take care of your people. That's why when the economy goes down, they don't change their when the fortunes of the company go down, they don't change their pay at all. They make sure they keep getting paid, because those families, it's a partnership, you see. But places where you are, if they're not investing in you, what they're doing is preparing you to go somewhere else or to compete. And you have to have that mentality. You have to, or you're always going to be someone's employee. Okay. Now, and so right here, and he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and that which was our father's hath he gotten all the glory. Now, first of all, wait a minute. Didn't they start out with all the flocks that were the speckled and the spotted? Why didn't they grow them? Didn't he start them out with a competing flock? If they were wise, they would multiply themselves. They had the same opportunity Jacob had, but they didn't know what they were doing. And so now here the man helped Jacob become great, and then Jacob stole from him multiple times, and now all they want to do is complain. They didn't appreciate the fact that Jacob helped them get there in the first place. You got people like that. And again, when you see what they say, that tells you who they are. I told you that, didn't I? Okay. All right. So now, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it wasn't toward him as it was before. So now, one thing that people will love, is they're okay when they're okay and you're not. They're happy with you when they're making money off you and you're not doing anything. You're not benefiting from it. They love that. They want you to be happy too. Here you got taken advantage of on 2 deals, and they mess with your pay, and they just want to come in and act like everything's okay. Don't you have bills? Don't you have a family to support and stuff like that? But now all of a sudden that Jacob's rising, and what they had done to him was turned back on them. Now all of a sudden they're unhappy. Now all of a sudden Laban's not happy anymore. Let's see here. I got a comment. My daughter helped me with my business from ground up, and she's a true go-getter. But I think she resented her upbringing because she gave her sons everything. Now they're soft. No, that's not resenting her upbringing. You know what that is? It's a lack of wisdom. It's a lack of wisdom. A lot of times people think that they're, by giving their kids something, that they're doing something for them. All you've done is you've taken something from them. You've taken from them the ability to get. It's just like in yesterday's message on Success with Apostle Dwayne, I was talking about the growth mindset. If you tell kids you're great, you're pretty, you're whatever, it stifles them. But if you tell them you're gonna be, and you get there, and you can make it, and all stuff like that, and you let them buy into the process of growing, then they get strong. But if you give them stuff, they're not gonna appreciate that. And right here, and the Lord said to Jacob, return to our fathers, into thy kindred, and I'll be with thee. Okay, so now that Jacob has grown up in Laban's deal, and he's learned how to turn the tables, now God's getting ready to send him back to the land, to the promised land. Now he's been equipped for his assignment. A lot of times God will send you into a place that that you don't understand why you're there, that you don't understand why you're there, and a lot of times it's frustrating. But if you are patient with the Most High and you stay in fellowship with him, he will give you the revelation. He will tell you why. And it's kind of like those old, when you see the old Karate Kid movies, both the first ones that they did with Ralph Macchio and the second ones that with Will Smith's son, it's wax on, wax off. The reason you're doing all that stuff is it's preparation for your assignment. It's a workout. All right. So listen, you're welcome, Yaya. And so let me just tell you, you're in a process, buy into it, become the business person that God has called you to be as part of your assignment as a believer. Get my new book. I just released that for you. And I'm making it available for free right now. And I've got multiple books that are coming after it as part of the series, because there's a lot of revelation and wisdom God wants us all to be operating in order for us to be able to succeed, let alone survive in the days that are coming. All right. So listen, God bless you. And I'll see you tomorrow back for Just Truth.